is a reflection of what is in your heart. So you could discipline the behavior, and we're supposed to do it with love, care, and all that, and address the issue. But more importantly is going further and looking at this child. What is the motivation behind this? What is it that is in their heart that is making them not trust and obey God? Alright? So when you think about it, it means you look at the behavior and you try to understand why is this child behaving in a certain way. Even yourself, there are things that you do. You know you should do better, but you still end up doing the wrong thing. So understanding what is the motivation behind it. If we read Mark chapter 7, verse 21, it says, Mark chapter 7, verse 21. You can find it in your Bibles. Mark chapter 7, verse 21. It says, let's read together. For from within, out of the heart of men, the evil thoughts, fornication, theft, murders, adulteries, deeds of coveting and wickedness, as well as deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. Let's read that once more. Mark chapter 7, verse 21. Louder, please. From within, out of the heart of men, proceed. Greed. Deeds of coveting and wickedness, as well as deceit, sensuality, and pride. All right. Let's read Luke chapter 6, verse 45. Luke chapter 6, verse 45. Luke chapter 6, verse 45. Found it? Luke chapter 6, verse 45 says, so Luke chapter 6, verse 45, I'll read from my version. The good man brings good things. Okay, let's read together. Luke chapter 6, verse 45. The intrinsically good man produces what is good and honorable and moral out of the good treasure stored in his heart. And the intrinsically evil man produces what is wicked and depraved out of the evil in his heart, for his mouth speaks from the overflow of his heart. So these scriptures, these three scriptures, Proverbs 4:23, Mark 7:21, and Luke 6:45, they really just tell us that the heart determines behavior. Alright? That the heart determines behavior. So in your training of children, in your discipling of yourself, the target, the best place to start is the heart. Because that is what determines behavior. I was giving an example that if, for example, you have a high school girl and there's a certain way that she's dressing and you tell her this is not appropriate to dress. If you do not address the heart, what will she do? She'll carry the clothes, go, change, now even in the malls, we have nice washrooms, change, go, have her day in the evening, change, and come back home. Alright? So the behavior, you cannot see the behavior, but her heart has not changed. You see, and we know of many situations where someone grew up really well and alikuwa anajulikana huyu mtoto mzuri. And then now when they go to college or university or where there is no control, then they start doing certain things. And you wonder, what happened? But this is because their heart has not always been in the right place. Alright? So, what I'm saying is, shepherding the heart is the first place to start. If you're dealing with behavior, that is the first place to start. And so maybe we're asking, okay, so what then is it to shepherd a child's heart? What does it mean? So for each of us, there are 3 heart struggles that we all struggle with. These 3 heart struggles are sort of like the foundation of the temptations that we face. How we know this is, these are the same things that Eve was tempted by the devil, and these are the same things that Jesus was tempted by the devil. If we read 1 John chapter 2, verse 15 to 17. 1 John chapter 2, verse 15 to 17. If you found it, you can just put up your hand. Someone can read it for us. 1 John chapter 2. Jose, please read for us. 1 John. It's here. Oh, okay, Sawa. Let's read together. I'll watch you and I'll see you. Let's read together. Do not love the world of sin that opposes God and His precepts, nor the things that are in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. Let's continue. For all that is in the world, the lust and sensual craving of the flesh, and the lust and longings of the eyes, and the boastful pride of life, pretentious confidence in one's resources or in the stability of earthly things. These do not come from the Father, but are from the world. So what I'm saying is this: shepherding a child's heart means looking at these 3 lusts, okay, and seeing how is my child inclined. Children are different. So there are those who, the lust of the flesh, which is the appetite, is something that they struggle with. There are kids who cannot wait for food, you know. There's this test that was done. It was some psychologists were doing research. So they had some, what they call marshmallows, but in our case we can use Kinder Joy, for example. And then they put it in a room. And then they put some 4-year-olds in that room. And then they told those 4-year-olds, Musishike, wait until I come back. So the children were there. You can imagine, wanaziangalia tu, just waiting for 15 minutes. So akarudi. There are those who waliweza kuwait, na kuna wale they were not able to wait. So that research was done. You know the way they follow children. So when these children were 18, in their 20s, those that were not able to wait were struggling with addictions, schoolwork, and just generally adapting as an adult. Those that were able to wait were very, very patient, and they were thriving in their schoolwork and in the marketplace. Alright? So that is something you can do with your child. Just buy something. Now waone ukinunua, just buy it, and then uambie ngojeni. See how your children wait. See for yourself how they know, Mom akona lollipop kwa bag, but I can't have it. I have to wait. And you give them time. You tell them utakula tukifika nyumbani. See how they harass you from church to home. Just see. It is an indication of their appetite. Can they wait? You know, a lot of life has to do with waiting. Okay? It has to do with waiting. There are many things even you and I are waiting for. So imagine if you cannot wait well. Alright? There are some things, for example, just waiting for sex before marriage. That's one thing they will have to wait and really battle with in their college years. So if you do not lay that foundation of waiting, then you're also setting them up in a certain way. So do little things like that. Teach them delayed gratification. Do not serve food before food is ready. You know? You're making chapatis. One child cannot wait. Mpaka umalize. Unampatia quarter. You know? It looks like the loving thing to do, but really what are you telling them? That if they want something now, they must have it. So just do little things like that. Help them delay. Let them wait for things, good things, and feel the reward of having waited. So that is the lust of the flesh. Alright? Then we have the lust of the eyes. This is people pleasing, being liked. You find a certain child, si mchokozi, hana kisirani mingi, but it's very important for them to be liked. what people want, they give, they share everything. So it looks like it's a good thing, but the motivation is they don't want to upset, they don't want to be in trouble with anyone. How does this set them up? It sets them up for failure. In college, someone will tell them, what? If you love me, come to my room. But because wataki kukasirishana watafanya nini? They will go. You see? So you find, if your child has that thing of wanting to be liked, wanting to be affirmed, wanting to make people happy, they are people pleasing, then that is something that you need to shepherd, so that they can know that satisfaction only comes from God. Alright? The other one is the pride of life, ambition, the will to dominate. You see? So in a child, how will you see it? You see it in that there are certain children who, if they are not number one, then hakuna game. If they are not the leaders, hakuna hiyo game imeharibika. If they are not the ones watching something, kama hiyo channel si kile anataka, hakuna tutakuwa na peace kwa hiyo nyumba. You see, just wanting to dominate. They dominate, and you might even find one is younger but wants to dominate even the older person. And for you, most of us, we are grown, but we still have these appetites that have not been shepherded. You see, so if you're in a committee, if you're not the chairman, una disagree na kila kitu. So that can't work. What? Like, it's your way or there's no way. You see, family meetings, you agree with all of them, because you want to dominate. You see, if it's in your appetites, you're always asking for advances. You can't wait for every month. You see, you can't, because there's this thing that you must do now. Alright? If it's affirmation, you don't annoy anyone, you don't get into any conflict. In your marriage, you don't even say when things are not good. You just keep quiet because you don't want to disturb the peace. You just want things to be the way they are, burying things under the carpet. So these are appetites that you have, and you need to look at the young ones. How can you shepherd them? And for most of these things, we watch and we see. We watch and we see. Children watch and they see. So some of your appetites that you're not able to shepherd, your children are watching and are going to manage. And because they are like you, genetically, if you remember biology, genetically, then they're going to be inclined in ways that even you are. Alright? So it's important to shepherd yourself, and because our parents did the best that they knew. For them, they knew discipline ni kuchapa mtoto and pay school fees. That's all. Like, they provided what they needed to provide. So this is something we need to do for ourselves. Alright? So that is what it means to shepherd a child's heart. Look at their appetites. Look at these three lusts. How are they inclined? And how can you begin to speak to them about them, to help them, to develop them, give them examples, give them situations where they can grow in those things. Alright. So as we continue, different ages will be shepherded differently. The different age groups will be shepherded differently. So I'm going to start with the infant to childhood. So infant to childhood is the first stage of development. I'm just reminded of the ambition, the will to dominate. I remember there's a child that I was working with, and so in the classes, what we usually do, we have like the line leader of the day. So every day there's the person who is the leader. And I remember she was very clever. In terms of schoolwork, she was very, very clever, very smart. But the day she's not the line leader, everyone is going to suffer. She's going to cry, she's going to throw a tantrum, it's just going to be a bad day. So traditionally, such a child will be celebrated because she's clever, she's getting the grades and everything. But when you think about that will to dominate, that is the thing that is likely to sabotage her in future. So if your child has that will to dominate, then there is your opportunity to disciple them. If you're that kind of a person, then it's also an opportunity to look at yourself and to see how then can I shepherd myself towards Christ-likeness. So as I said, infancy to childhood, this is the first stage of development, and it encompasses the period from birth to age 4 or 5. So this is the early years. Okay? So of course we all know at this period there's a lot of change. There's just a lot of change. The child is growing physically, emotionally, socially. They're just growing. And so we can really be focused on the growth and not really focused on how are we shepherding this child. So at this stage, the one big lesson, if I can summarize everything for this age, the important lesson for the child to learn in this period is that he is an individual under authority. Period. They just need to know they are under authority. So he has been made by God and has a responsibility to obey God in all things. So the key passage of scripture in this period is Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1 to 3. So at this point, obedience is the thing that is most important to teach for the 0 to 5 year old. So Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1 to 3. Let's read together. Children,
obey your parents in the Lord. Accept their guidance and discipline. For this is obedience teaches wisdom and self-discipline.
Let's read that again. Children, obey your parents in the Lord. That is, accept their guidance and discipline as his representatives. For this is right. For obedience teaches wisdom and self-discipline. Alright. So this, as I said, is the first level of development. Obedience is very important. And you'll find that at this age, funny enough, children are most defiant. At 2 years, they don't want to hear anything. If you tell them everything, wanakwambia, no. Study. And you see what we do? We laugh about it. We think, we are not going more. We make fun of it. But really what that child is doing, they're just being disobedient. Outrightly. You see? And so, when children are disobedient, what really happens is they move from what we are calling the circle of blessing, and they move to the circle of danger. So disobedience at this age is the foundation of moving from the circle of safety to the circle of danger. So let's read. Within the circle of safety, what is in that circle? We have, louder please. Go well, long life, obedience. So when they live in obedience, then they are in the circle of safety. So when they move from the circle of safety to disobedience and dishonor, they move into hardship, difficulty. Okay? And so any form of discipline means that you are bringing them back to the circle of safety. So what I'm saying is this: anytime, even you and I, move from obedience to disobedience, then we move from the circle of safety to the circle of danger. So this can look very far-fetched, but I want you to think about your life. Possibly some of the issues that you're having are because you have moved from the circle of safety. Possibly some of the struggles that you're having in your workplace is because you're not submitted, you don't obey, you argue with the supervisors, you come late, you don't finish your work. That is disobedience. Possibly at school, in your relationships, in your marriage, you're not submitted, you're not loving, okay? So we're not obeying. So possibly some of the issues that we're having in our lives are because we have moved from the circle of safety to the circle of danger. And the Bible is clear that God disciplines those that He loves. And so when God is disciplining us through anything, that letter that you get, that auctioning that you go through, whatever it is, that is discipline, and it's God trying to bring us back into the circle of safety. And I was sharing with the congregation in the morning that there are areas in my life right now that I'm experiencing discipline, but I'm choosing to see it as God is bringing me from the circle of danger into the circle of safety. So you could be saying that you don't have money all the time, but could it be you're disobedient in how you use your resources? You don't tithe, you don't save, you don't give, you don't invest, you know. And I'm not saying the economy is not hard, it is hard. But there are things that we can do that can keep us in the circle of safety. Maybe you're saying marriage is hard, but there are things that already God has told us to do. He's told us to submit as women. He's told the men to love. And maybe you're not doing it. Alright? So the struggle there has nothing to do with the economy or the government. It is your disobedience. Right? So when we move from the circle of obedience, then we move into an area of hardship and struggle. So that's the same thing for children. Sometimes we hesitate to discipline them because it's painful. It's painful to give that reprimand. But when you think about it as I'm moving this child from danger into safety, then you know it is the good work of the Lord to do it. Amen? So I want to break down obedience and what it means for that child at that age. Obedience for this child means three things. It means obedience without challenge, without excuse, and without delay. Alright? Without challenge, without excuse, and without delay. Think about your own obedience. How do you obey when you're told something? You know, even if it's your husband or your supervisor or anyone, how do you obey? Do you really obey without challenge, without asking why? You know why? Kwa nini? Kwa nini nifanye hivyo? Why? Huh? We're told to do this and we ask why. Why should I do it? Without excuse. Excuse, you say, okay, yeah, inawezekana lakini hiyo God ata understand. There's some things that you do. There's some lies that you say, you're like, hiyo lazima ningefanya hivyo. That was the necessary thing to do. So obedience without excuse and without delay. So without delay. So you know the right thing to do, but you delay it. That is still disobedience. So obedience for that 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old means without challenge, without excuse, and without delay. So I was giving an example of a friend of mine who we went for a wedding in a field like this. So tents and then kulikuwa na kichaka kidogo. Then their 3-year-old was going towards a certain direction. And as she was going, the mother could see a snake in front of that child. And so she called that child's name and told her to stop. So imagine if that child was you and how you obey, what would have happened? Yeah? So the good thing is she had taught her child to listen to her voice and to obey. And because the child needed to stop immediately. Moving further would have meant she gets attacked by the snake. So the difference between obedience and disobedience sometimes could be the difference between life and death. Alright? So you have to teach your child to obey without challenge, without excuse, and without delay. You know, you tell them, enda kwa oshe vyombo, wanasema, wacha kwanza hii kipindi iishe. That is disobedience. Alright? Let me first do this, then I'll do that. Or, let me do this, then I'll do part of that. Excuses. Or they challenge you. But mami, kila siku ni nini inafanyanga? Do you have those conversations in your home? Yeah? That's challenge. They're challenging your authority. So I'm not saying that you become harsh and punitive, you know, like what we experience. But what I'm trying to say is, shepherd this child's heart with love, okay? To understand that obedience should be without challenge, without excuse, and without delay. The importance of obedience is it also lays a foundation for them, for their relationship with God. Alright? So when you think about 10 years from now, 15 years from now, what do you want? You want this child to hear God and do what God tells them to do. You don't want them to question God. You don't want them to challenge Him or to delay doing things that can take them to the next level. So it's a very important work to do, and it must be done consistently. Alright? Today something cannot be right, and then tomorrow it is wrong. You know, children can really read you. Wanajua, wageni wamekuja, so today we can just do whatever we want. Hatutakuwa disciplined, mama got preoccupied or dad is preoccupied. You know, the time news. So because it's time news, you know, dad's attention is focused. So they can get away with whatever mischief. So your obedience and training has to be consistent. It can't be Wamendo Shago, they can do this, then when they come back, they're almost different children. You see, the rules and the expectations remain. And this is important because we find situations in school where there's a child I'm working with and there's how he behaves. And then when the mother comes, ananiambia, oh mtoto akulangi home, akulangi rice. Hi. I'm like, this child, you kula na naitisha ingine. You know, in fact, he's very impatient in the dining. What's happening? So you find children have a way of having an alter ego. You know, at home ako hivi, shule ako hivi. Because they know these adults are not consistent. You know, they're not consistent and they are not even talking to each other. You know, and you find kids will play those games. They know I can get away with this with dad, but I cannot get away with mom. Or I can get away with it with mom, but I cannot get away with dad. So there's no consistency. So anajua nikitaka hii, wacha niulize this parent. Nikitaka hii, wacha niulize this other parent. So consistency means also with the person that you're parenting with, that you are agreed, that they know the standard, even with the teacher, everyone that is responsible, they know the standard across, so that they don't have that multiple personality. Alright? So that also means even you have to be consistent. It's a high calling, because today, always sema leo nimechoka, so let things be as they can be. The child will know, oh, so this thing is negotiable. Sawa, you know? So next time unajaribu kumdiscipline anashangaa. What's happening? So you have been inconsistent. So as I said, obedience needs to be without challenge, without excuse, and without delay. And it also needs to be consistent. So for that child, as I said, from 3 to 4, from infancy to 5 years old, the big thing to teach them is to submit and to respect authority and to obey promptly. Alright? Then we go into the childhood, what I'm calling the middle period of a child's life. Before I go there, I wanted to say, for the young ones, the first place to start, and I have worked with many families and many just communities, is the first place to start, and those of you know me, I know that I'm passionate about sleep training. The first place to start is for you as the guardian to determine the time that the child will sleep. You know? Most of us, it's the child who determines what time they sleep. At 11, bado ako hapo, ana slide kwa viti. You know, the TV is on, ako kwa phone, you know, just different things that you say, huyu analalanga this time. So at that age, the child should not be the leader. You are the leader. You're the one to determine that this child sleeps at this time. I personally advocate for 8 p.m. At 8 p.m., all of them should be asleep. So what does that mean for you? It also means for you need to be disciplined. Dinner needs to be ready at a certain time. The home needs to be quiet. You know, there are different things that as adults that you can do to support that. The other thing is food training. You know, do you allow your child to just eat what they want? You know, is your house like a hotel? You know, utakula Weetabix, ama rice, ama uchi. You know, in the morning you give them 3 options, and then they say staki. They're like, okay, tununue mandizi na unampatia. You know, so you're teaching your child that I can just decide what I want, and that is it. Our house is a hotel. I just say what I want, and my mom will run. And because what you want that child to feed. You see, you're also struggling with affirmation. You don't want to be told to talk amekonda. You know, it's important for you, for people to see or have a healthy baby. So is it even for the child or it's for you? You see, and what you do is you set your child up. Because now when they come to school and find me, and me nimepika tu uji, I don't have Weetabix. What will happen to your child? Think about it. You know what will happen to your child, even when they visit someone else, and that person doesn't have the Weetabix and the yogurt. You see, you set yourself up, you set your child up for frustration. So, Disciplining at that age means determining the sleeping time and determining even the meals that they eat. You help them eat what is served. Because as the adults in church, can you really give them poison? No. So if they eat what is served. So those are some of the things that you can start at that age. So I'll move to the middle period of a child's age. This is age 5 to 12. This is primary school, if we can look at it in our context. So at this point, the child has moved away from the parents because now they are in a bigger school. There are other things that are influencing them. There's media, there's friends, other families, and now they're at an age where they can understand, so they can see different things. So, if fortunately you have done a good job of teaching them the submission, the big issue during these middle years is character development. At this point is really where you can target their heart, their character development. Alright? So remember I talked about the last. So it starts from the last, the 3 last. Remember a friend of mine called me on Friday, and she was telling me they were in a Christian school. The son was in a Christian school, and then during COVID they struggled, peleka another school. So this school, the culture is very secular and very materialistic. So now these days, kijana wake anakujanga nyumbani anasema, I want to make $1 million. I want to make $1 million. So the mother is wondering, he's consistently talking about material things, and there's nothing wrong with success and having that ambition for wealth. But what I'm talking about is that heart that loves money more than God. You see? So she's very confused because she's thinking, we are not like that even as a family, but this child now has gone into a culture where that thing is valued, I know there are certain schools that have a lot of pressure, so if your child has that inclination in their heart, they'll struggle. One friend of mine, the mother used to have a delivery ya nyama, meat company. So, and she was in a high-end school. So, jioni watoto wakichukuliwa, so wanachukuliwa na big black cars, So one day the mother came to pick the child, na alikuwa na hiyo pick up. Nyuma imejaa nyama, si ametoka shughuli anakuja kuchukua mtoto shuleni. So, anamuita, msichana anamwangalia hivi, anamuignore, anatembea. I don't know you, I don't know this, I don't know that. Can you imagine? The mother was so heartbroken. Akamwambia hata sasa utakuwa unatumia matatu. Kama tumefika hapo. But she was embarrassed because the rest have these flashy cars. Halafu sisi tuko na hiki pick up. She was so embarrassed. And children will do such things. I don't know if you experienced it even in boarding school. Visiting day. Unaona mtu anataka kuficha wazazi wake. Wametoka wherever, wamekuja, they've made food, wamemake mukimo, nini. And then wale wameletewa KFC and everything. Wow! Mukimo inamwagwa. And you guys didn't see those things. Okay, so, and sometimes I was the KFC girl, and other times I was the Mukimo girl. It used to change depending on the thing or which time of the month. You see, so you have to train your children that it's okay, that the biggest thing is to have godly orientation and to be Christ-like. So as I'm talking about the middle years, character development, a big focus is the fruits of the Spirit, as they have been learning through this week. So the fruit of love, have you taught your children how to love each other, love their siblings? Loving is serving, Do they serve each other? Do they care for each other? When they're fighting for toys, that is a big sign of selfishness. See? Because this child is thinking of themselves. That me, I don't care. Whether you're happy or not, I don't care. The other one is anavuta. Kama ni simu no one thinks about the other person. A sign of not having love. Joy. Peace. Patience. I was giving an example of patience. You could be here, but you don't have patience. You don't have patience for failure. Hata unajulikana. In your family, everyone knows you don't have patience. You see? Kindness. So you're only kind to the people that you know. Wale watoto wanakujua na wale watu wanakulipanga. Those are the only people you're kind to. But anyone else in the matatu, in the restaurant, on the road, you're just not kind. Goodness, you're always just thinking about evil, other people and how they should fail and everything like that. Gentleness, faithfulness. Are you faithful with your resources, with your time, with your energy? Are you faithful? Self-control. If I connect this self-control with those other things of food and sexuality and media, do you exercise self-control? So at this age, it's important to teach the children these matters of the heart, how to develop the fruits of the Spirit. So you can find a child who's very good in terms of, they're not naughty, they don't miss school, they don't fail to do homework, but they're very self-righteous, They think they're better than other people. So, how to have noticed, but he's there sitting, maybe he's top of his class, but he really thinks he's better than everyone else. That's not a godly attitude. And that's what we saw with the prodigal son, the other son. So the other son, hakufanya makosa, he didn't go with the women and the alcohol and everything. But he was there, right there in the house of his father, but with an attitude of self-righteousness and judgment. So those are things to even look out for. You can find a child who's very quiet, hakusumbui, but they're easily manipulated, because it's very important for them to be liked. So they're easily manipulated. So they could get into bad company. They could get into bad relationships because they're easily manipulated. So self-control, you find that maybe they're not doing anything extreme because, they're not yet at the age to do drugs or alcohol, but you see how they handle food, They eat even when they're not hungry. It's a small thing, but it's a big thing because it shows, can this child control their appetites? So train them. They serve food. Is that all that food? Do they really need all that food? And that's a conversation to have. When we have breakfast, then at 10, they want to serve again. Then at 11, they want to serve again. At 12. So the whole day, they're just eating. You see? So it looks innocent, but at the end of it, does this child have self-control? So it's an opportunity to have that conversation. We only eat when we are hungry, and ultimately, only God can meet our deepest desires. So shepherding your child's heart means changing their orientation. So I think I have a picture to show that. Changing their orientation towards godliness. So helping them focus on God, helping them to know that their deepest desires can be met by God and should be met by God. So idols means those things that we pursue to meet our deepest needs, whether it is money, whether it is relationships, whether it is power, whether it is ambition, those things that we run for at the expense of our affection for God. So that's my encouragement today, that as we are raising the children, as we are parenting ourselves as well, look into your heart. Like David said, search me and know if there's any way that is offensive and lead me to repentance. So I want us to take a few minutes. Think about yourself. Think about your appetites. Think about your heart. And ask God to search your heart. To search your heart. And this is an opportunity to look at it for what it is. And to repent. For us to pray and ask God to help us. To forgive us. And lead us into reconciliation.